Hello, Dawgpound South campers. This is the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Steve Gill, and it's been 21 years since the Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. And it's been even longer since they've swept them. Now you know why they were a 6.5-point favorite. I agree with Jameis Winston when he said that the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't beat the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns beat the Cleveland Browns. And that's been the story of the 2024 season. That's it in a nutshell. That's what the highlight, if there is going to be a highlight reel of this season, should be titled The Cleveland Browns versus the Cleveland Browns. You've got players getting personal fouls. Jermaine Ifedi hit a guy. Tony threw a ball. I mean, that's stupid stuff right there. And by the way, Mr. Tony, bye. So long. See you later. Nothing gained. Nothing really lost. If you really think that fumble made a huge difference in the outcome, sorry you haven't, but you weren't watching the rest of the game. Defense just got tired again. Jameis Winston turned into bad Jameis Winston again. You kept targeting David Njoku when you should have been targeting Jerry Jeudy. It just, they covered David Njoku. I kept looking at that, and they kept him under wraps. Yes, he had some catches, but still, the Steelers took him out, and they kept going to him. I don't understand that. I am hearing that Jameis Winston and Kevin Stefanski are having disagreements about the weekly game plan. So I think we've seen the last of Jameis Winston as a starter. I would just go ahead and start DTR. I mean, you're going to play Kansas City. Why not? I know they have a great defense, and you have to have the ball last versus Kansas City, especially if it's a close game. You can't give them any amount of time on the clock to beat them. So the Browns are 3-10. They're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. I say yes, but they were eliminated from the playoffs long before this game. Now we're back to the Cleveland media calling for somebody's head. Unfortunately, sorry to disappoint you, but Kevin Stefanski isn't going anywhere. Andrew Berry isn't going anywhere. Jim Schwartz isn't going anywhere. Bubba Ventrone, not too sure about. But let's just start DTR. That way we know what we got. I mean, right now, the consensus in that building is they've got to find a franchise quarterback for next year. And it ain't Deshaun Watson. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I still haven't heard anything definite. I'm hearing hypotheticals that they will. Well, first of all, he's probably going to start the season on the PUP list. I can't imagine him coming back from Achilles tear that quick, even if he does do the Aaron Rodgers routine. I'm sorry. I just can't see it. And I'm thinking you can't really get rid of him until 2026. And I've explained this before. You can take the cap hit, make him a June 1st cut, and you can spread it over 2 years. Similar to what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson, except there was less money involved. You can't cut him in 2025. You just can't cut him. $92 million cap hit. No team can survive that. If you want to do that, then basically what you're going to do is you're not going to be able to sign anybody, and this team could go 0-17 next year. And that would make some people happy because then they'd fire Barry and Kevin Stefanski. But, right now, you sit him or you try and keep him away. I don't know what you can do with Deshaun Watson, but he's going to be on the roster sometime during 2025. Then you get rid of him in 2026. Even if he's on the roster in 2025, you're still competitive. You'll still have the money. Don't let anybody in the Cleveland media tell you that they are in cap hell. They are not in cap hell. They are not in cap hell. And I would encourage you to follow Jack Duffin on social media. He explains it way better than I do because he knows more about the cap than I do. So moving forward, also, you can't cut the kicker. He's got guaranteed money. You got to let him work it out. Kevin Stefanski said he's the kicker. You got to let him work this problem out. He's going to be on the roster this year. He's going to be on the roster next year. Jed Wills, on the other hand, isn't. We'll talk about that after the break. Okay, well, everybody's wondering why they haven't cut Jed Wills. They put him on IR. He has no contract for next year. If he leaves, which he will, they're not going to re-sign him either. So he leaves, you go in free agency, and you get a compensatory pick. It could be as high as a third. It might be a sixth. Right now, they've got 9 draft picks and they have a potential for 2 compensatory picks, one for Joe Flacco, which will probably be a 6th, and one for Jordan Elliott, which could be a 3rd at the end of the 3rd round. I don't know yet. I have to look at how many snaps he had and all that. But Jed Wills won't be back. That's a good start. What would I do to fix this Browns? I've already said this. You keep Kevin Stefanski. You keep Andrew Berry because they're the only ones to come up with a creative solution to get Deshaun Watson off the Cleveland Browns. You don't bring in a new GM. No good GM is going to come into this situation. You don't even know you're going to hire an untested coordinator. No, these guys are still playing for Kevin Stefanski. They are. I think near the end of that game, they got tired of this crap because their kicker couldn't hit a kick, but he is going to stay on the roster. He's got guaranteed money this year and next year. So they're not going to cut him. I know fans want them to cut him, drive him to the airport, whatever, but he's not. The only other solution would be to bring in some competition, put him on IR and bring in another kicker. That might be a possibility if he has something wrong with him. He doesn't say he does. He just mentally, he's just not there. And I can attest that when you get into a situation where nothing goes right, it continues to nothing goes right. But what a difference that game would have been if he made both those kicks. The Browns got in the situation they wanted. Ball before the half, kick that field goal. It's 13-10. Then they got the ball first in the second half. Kevin Stefanski loves the double dip. You march down the field. He makes that kick. It's 13-all. Defense plays different. Steelers play different on offense. And it could have been anyone's game. But you're not going to get rid of him. Kadarius Toney, on the other hand, bye-bye. Yeah, he's done. And the Browns still don't have a punt returner. Bubba Ventrone, I don't know if they're going to get rid of him. They might. The Browns' special teams is unspectacular. I mean, I heard a lot of fellow members of the Fanatical Elves Network wanting to cut Jerome Ford, and then he rips off a big kickoff return. So, no, they're not going to cut him. This team, moving forward, has to find their franchise quarterback. They have to. Now, the way that the front office works, they tend to are big players in free agency. They plug holes, and then they draft to kind of put players on the roster that are going to replace players in the future. Some have had to play. I mean, Andrew Berry, everybody says, oh, he stinks a draft pick. No, he doesn't stink. Delpit is good. JOK is good. Tillman is good. DeJuan Jones, before he got hurt, future left tackle, made the Jerry Jeudy trade, future number 1 pick. So if I'm going to point anything, I might let Greg Newsome walk. I might trade him. I keep Martin Emerson. He was a top 5 corner last year. Something's up with his brain, and I don't know what it is. But there's just communication problems continue. They had them under Joe Woods, and they're having them under Jim Schwartz. So it's not a coordinator problem. It's a player problem. You got to find a player. You got to get A, younger on the offensive line. B, younger on the defensive line. Got to bring in some safeties. You got to sign younger safeties, not the guys near the end of their career like Rodney McLeod and Juan Thornhill. You've got to find good safeties. You got to hope JOK comes back and plays healthy. I haven't heard anything on him. Berea is in lockdown on him. He hasn't been put on the regular IR. He's still on the IR designated to return. So you got to think he'll come back sometime. I think the 4 weeks is already up. So let's see if he starts practicing. Other than that, it's very frustrating. But then I'm a Browns fan, so I'm used to this. You're used to this. We've seen this show before. Moving forward, you got the Chiefs. You may have a potential to win 2 more games. I've said this before. One is Miami. They have them in Cleveland. Pray for bad weather. And then the last game of the season against Baltimore. Baltimore already has their playoff seed set. They will rest everybody. They do it all the time. So you have the potentially to get 2 more wins. I just can't see them beating Kansas City unless Kansas City does something completely stupid. And they don't do stupid things. They do have a kicker problem, but worse than the Browns. They can't seem to find one, which tells you what the kicker market is like. But this week, they're going to have to game plan for Patrick Mahomes and have to game plan for a very, very good defense. And they're going to have to go into the fourth quarter with a completely different game plan. If the game is tight, the Browns have to have the ball last. That's it. You can't give Kansas City any time on the clock at the end of a game because then the referees get involved and then the other team is screwed, basically. So moving forward, we have Kansas City next. Maybe Kelsey and Taylor Swift will announce that they're getting married. That might be the highlight of the game for everybody. But as I see it, this maybe 4 wins, 5 if they're lucky. But they certainly could end up with only 3 wins this season. And I know all the media want to get rid of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry. All the fans want to get rid of Andrew Berry. It's just, it shouldn't happen. It's not going to happen. You got to move forward with the guys who can do the best job next year with Deshaun Watson on the roster. So that's it for today. This has been the Cleveland Browns Dawgpound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Steve Gill. I thank you for listening, watching, subscribing, and following us here at the Fanatical Elves Network. And all I got to say is, go Browns!